All rise.
The Kosovo Specialist Chambers are now in session.
Please be seated.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone inside and outside the courtroom. Before we start, and pursuant to my decision setting the date for this initial appearance, I would like to ask the court photographer to take a couple of pictures for 1.5 minutes. Please proceed. Thank you very much. You may now leave the courtroom. Madam Court Officer, can you please call the case?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is case KSC BC 2020-05, the Specialist Prosecutor versus Salih Mustafa.
Thank you very much, Madam Court Officer. Before asking those present in the courtroom to introduce themselves, I would like to remind everyone of a few rules that we must be observed at all times in order to make courtroom proceedings smooth. So please, make sure you activate your microphone before speaking and you switch it off after you finish. Talk slowly and clearly as we have interpretation from and into Albanian and Serbian. Wait 5 seconds before responding to me or to a party or participant in order to allow the interpreters to finish the interpretation. What is said in this hearing is transcribed in real time and will be reflected in a transcript available to the parties and to the public after this hearing. I would also like to remind the parties that certain information in this case is subject to protective measures and confidentiality orders. This includes confidential information that has been redacted from the confirmed indictment as to the identity of certain individuals, dates, locations, and other information. Confidential information shall not be disclosed in open session. If any party or participant wishes, we must go into private session and refer to any confidential information in this private or closed session. And for that, you must please before indicate the reasons. Now, I would kindly ask the parties and participants to introduce themselves, starting with the Specialist Prosecutor's Office.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. For the prosecution, we are the Specialist Prosecutor, Mr. Jack Smith, Ms. Sylvia Descoli, Associate Prosecutor, Ms. Lena Peterson, Case and Evidence Manager, Ms. Aniko Bulldog, Case and Evidence Assistant, and I am Alex Whiting, Deputy Prosecutor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Prosecutor. Now, I turn to the defense, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Julius von Bonnet. I'm the counsel for Mr. Salih Mustafa, and that's what I am. I'm a member of the Bar of Rotterdam in the Netherlands.
Thank you very much, Counsel. And I add that your client, Mr. Mustafa, is also present in the courtroom for the record. Now I turn to Madam Registrar, please.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Fidel Madonlan, Registrar.
Thank you very much, Madam Registrar. And for the record, I am Nicholas Guillou, pretrial judge for this case. The accused is appearing today for the first time before the specialist chambers, following the indictment confirmed against him. Mr. Mustafa, will you please rise? Can you tell us your full name?
Good afternoon to all. I'm Salih Mustafa. I'm born on 1st of January 1972 in Pristina. My mother tongue is Albanian. I'm a citizen of Republic of Kosovo. As per education, I've graduated in economics. I'm an advisor in the Ministry of Defense of the Republic of Kosovo.
Be seated. Now let me move to the procedural history of the case. On 12 June 2020, in my capacity as pretrial judge, I confirmed the indictment submitted by the specialist prosecutor against the accused, charging him with the war crimes of Count 1, arbitrary detention, Count 2, cruel treatment, Count 3, torture, and Count 4, murder. The accused was arrested in Kosovo on 24 September 2020, at which point he was served with the confirmed indictment. He was transferred to the detention facilities of the Kosovo Specialist Chambers in The Hague the same day. Mr. Mustafa, before we proceed any further, I have to make sure that you can follow the proceedings in a language that you understand and speak. Can you confirm that you understand and speak Albanian?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Mustafa. By this, I am satisfied that you can follow the proceedings in Albanian, a language that you understand and speak in accordance with Rule 92 of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence. If at any moment in the course of the proceedings, whether it's today or in another hearing, you are not receiving interpretation, please draw my attention to it immediately so it can be fixed. Now, let me explain the specific purpose of this initial appearance for the benefit of the accused, but also those joining us in the public gallery and those following the proceedings online. Today's hearing is not a trial. No evidence will be presented or debated, and the guilt or innocence of the accused will not be debated nor discussed. The purpose of this initial appearance is regulated by Article 39 of the law and Rule 92 of the rules. And according to these provisions, as pretrial judge, I shall have the charges of the confined indictment read to the accused in a language he understands and speak, confirm that the accused understands the indictment, satisfy myself that the rights of the accused, in particular his right to counsel, are respected, inform the accused that within 30 days of today's hearing, he will be called upon to admit guilt or plead non-guilty on each charge set out in the indictment. But if the accused wishes to do so, he may immediately admit guilt or plead not guilty. And finally, I shall also set other dates as appropriate in performing my functions as pretrial judge. I expect the parties to adhere to these matters, which I will address in turn. Should either party wish to discuss any other matter not expressly foreseen in the context of the initial appearance, they are invited to do so in writing by making a filing before me. First, may I ask you, Mr. Mustafa, to confirm that you have received the confirmed indictment dated 19 June 2020 in a language that you understand and speak?
Yes, I have received it and I do understand it.
I will now ask Madam Court Officer to read out the charges in the confirmed indictment as foreseen in Article 39 of the law and Rule 92. Please proceed, Madam Court Officer.
Thank you, Your Honor. In the confirmed indictment, the Specialist Prosecutor charges Mr. Salih Mustafa with Count 1, the war crime of arbitrary detention under Article 14(1)(c) of the law, committed in a detention compound located in Salih, Kosovo, against at least 6 individuals between approximately 1 April 1999 and 19 April 1999. Count 2, the war crime of cruel treatment under Article 14(1)(ci) of the law, committed in a detention compound located in Salih, Kosovo, against at least 6 individuals between approximately 1 April 1999 and 19 April 1999. Count 3, the war crime of torture under Article 14(1)(ci), committed in a detention compound located in Salih, Kosovo, against at least 6 individuals between approximately 1 April 1999 and 19 April 1999. And count 4, the war crime of murder under Article 14(1)(ci) of the law, committed in a detention compound located in Salih, Kosovo, against 1 individual between approximately 19 April 1999 and around the end of April 1999. In relation to these crimes, there is a well-grounded suspicion that Mr. Mustafa is criminally responsible pursuant to Article 16(1)(a) of the law for physically committing the crimes under counts 1 to 3, committing as a member of a joint criminal enterprise the crimes under counts 1 to 4, and alternatively for count 4, committing as a member of the aforementioned joint criminal enterprise the crime of murder by being aware that such a crime might be perpetrated in carrying out the common purpose of the joint criminal enterprise and by willingly taking that risk, ordering the crimes under counts 1 to 3, instigating the crimes under counts 1 to 3, and further and alternatively aiding and abetting the crimes under counts 1 to 4. Further and alternatively to the alleged responsibility pursuant to Article 16(1)(a) of the law, there is a well-grounded suspicion that Mr. Mustafa is criminally responsible for the crimes under counts 1 to 4 as a superior pursuant to Article 16(1)(c) of the law. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Madam Court Officer. Mr. Mustafa, I wish to remind you that this is not the time to contest the charges, but simply to acknowledge your understanding of the charges. You will have ample opportunity to challenge the charges with the assistance of your counsel. Mr. Mustafa, can you please rise? Did you understand the charges contained in the confirmed indictment as read out by Madam Court Officer?
poi kuptova.
Yes, I understood them.
Now, let me inform you of your rights before this court. The law on the specialist chambers and the rules of procedure and evidence guarantee you a number of rights. I will read out the most important ones. First, you shall be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. In the determination of the charges against you, you are entitled to a fair and public hearing, subject to any measures ordered for the protection of victims and witnesses. You have the right to be informed promptly and in detail, in a language which you understand, of the nature and cause of the charges against you. You have the right to have adequate time and facilities for the preparation of your defense and to communicate with the counsel of your own choosing. You have the right to be tried within a reasonable time. You have the right to be tried in your presence and to defend yourself through your counsel. You have the right to have counsel assigned to you and without payment if you do not have sufficient means to pay for it. You have the right to examine or have examined the witnesses against you and to obtain the attendance and examination of witnesses on your behalf. You have the right to have the free assistance of an interpreter if you cannot understand or speak the language used in the court. You have the right not to be compelled to testify against yourself or to admit guilt. You have the right to remain silent, and no adverse inference shall be drawn from your silence. You also have the right to make unsworn statements relevant to the case, and you may appear as a witness under oath. You have the right to lodge preliminary motions to challenge the jurisdiction of the specialist chambers, to allege defects in the form of the indictment, and to seek the severance of the indictment. You have the right to receive, within 30 days of today's hearing, the supporting material to the indictment submitted for confirmation. You have the right to receive all statements of witnesses whom the specialist prosecutor intends to call to testify at trial in the language that you understand and speak, namely Albanian. You have the right to receive immediately any information which may reasonably suggest your innocence or mitigate your guilt or affect the credibility or reliability of the specialist prosecutor's evidence as soon as the information is in his custody, control, or actual knowledge. You have the right that all material and relevant evidence or facts in possession of the specialist prosecutor be made available to you before the beginning of and during the proceedings. This right is only subject to restrictions which are strictly necessary and when any counterbalancing protections are applied. You have the right not to be detained for an unreasonable period of time prior to the opening of the case, to request review of decision of your detention, and to appeal such decisions directly before the Court of Appeal. You have the right to appeal directly before the Court of Appeal a decision on preliminary motions challenging the jurisdiction of the specialist chambers. You have the right to seek leave to appeal other decisions. Mr. Mustafa, you heard the most important rights that you enjoy in accordance with the applicable legal framework of the specialist chambers. Do you understand these rights?
Yes, I understand, Your Honor.
I wish to inform you that according to Article 21(5) of the law, you may not represent yourself because you are currently in detention. Therefore, representation by specialist counsel is mandatory. It is my duty as pretrial judge to ensure that your right to counsel is respected. To this end, I have noted the registrar's filing informing me of the conditional assignment of counsel. I take from the registrar's report and from your counsel submissions today that you are represented not only for the purpose of this initial appearance, but for the entire duration of the proceedings in accordance with Section 14 on the Directive on Counsel. Mr. Mustafa, can you confirm that Mr. Julius von Bonnet has been assigned for the entire duration of these proceedings?
Po, zaključek se konfirmuje.
Yes, I confirm, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Mustafa. It follows that the accused is presently represented by counsel. I will now turn to the possibility for the accused to enter a plea, if any, in accordance with Rule 92. Mr. Mustafa, within 30 days from today, you will be called upon to admit guilt or plead non-guilty on each charge in the confirmed indictment. If you wish to do so, you may choose to immediately admit guilt or immediately plead not guilty. I would therefore like to ask you if you have had the opportunity to discuss the charges in the confirmed indictment with your counsel, and if you are prepared to enter a plea at this time. I invite you to stand up and let me know your answer.
On Thursday,
Your Honor, I said that I won't enter a plea today. I will consult my lawyer before I do this.
thank you.
Considering that Mr. Mustafa has not entered a plea at this time, I would like to ask the parties to provide their preliminary views, if any, on the scheduling of a further hearing to enter a plea, starting with the defense and then with the prosecutor office. Mr. von Bonnet.
Your Honor, thank you very much. There is only a couple of practicalities that I would like to mention at this time. It would be very helpful if Mr. Mustafa can be supplied with a hard copy of the basic legal documents of the Kosovo Specialist Chamber in his own language. And the fact, Your Honor, as you have mentioned already, the defense at this point does not exclude that it may file motions charging the legality or the jurisdiction of the court, and the fact that we are standing here today. It's obviously not a matter that, therefore, the defense accepts the establishment of the court as such. But once again, we will do so in due course through the motions. As far as the time limits is concerned, I leave it up to you, Your Honor, in order to see what is best fitting for all the parties. Obviously, I will make myself available. My client will make himself available, and we will make sure that we will attend at that time. I truly hope and I trust that the prosecution and documentation that will be served to my client will be in his own language, as it will be in the practical terms working with my client much easier if that is done appropriately. So at this moment it is limited to the hard copy of the basic legal text. However, I assume that when the prosecution will disclose the evidence against my client, that obviously that will be done also in the language that he understands, which is Albanian. These are my preliminary remarks, Your Honor. I do not have anything in particular at this moment. Let me briefly consult. From this side, at this moment, Your Honor, thank you very much for your attention, and Mr. Prosecutor as well.
Thank you very much, Counsel. Before I give the floor to Mr. Prosecutor, I would just like to indicate that it is clearly a priority that Mr. Mustafa will be given a hard copy of the legal documents in a language that he reads and understands. And I will ask Madam Registrar to make sure that this will be distributed as soon as possible. Mr. Prosecutor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. With respect to the disclosure materials that were referenced by the court and also by defense counsel, we will begin providing those materials according to the rules as required as soon as defense counsel is connected to legal workflow, which I believe will happen today or no later than tomorrow. And we are prepared to start those disclosures and comply with all the obligations of the rules immediately. With respect to the setting of the next appearance, within 30 days, we will appear as ordered by the court. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. Further hearing to enter a plea will be scheduled in due course. At this point, I would like to ask the parties whether they have other issues that they would like to raise. And I would like to remind them that should any submission require the disclosure of confidential information, they should notice me before so that appropriate measures can be taken. Mr. Fonbonnet.
Yes, I assume, Your Honor, that will include a more precise indictment in the sense that my client has only a redacted version of that. I do not know at this point whether these are, whether this is redacted because of protective measures concerning whoever might be in the redacted version. However, when that is available, then obviously we would like to have one as such. And further, obviously, it's for my client quite new to suddenly be in a completely different country with a lot of people who he doesn't know at all. He has been taken, arrested, transferred here, served with some documents, and obviously we will need to have some time in order to adjust and see what is fit for the challenging of the indictment as a whole. It is obviously that this court is a quite unique format as we see it in the international specter. It is a national court actually that applies an international standard with international rules of regulations, and if there would be any discrepancy between those international rules and regulations and the national regulations, which might safeguard his interest better, then I believe it is in the interest always to make sure and ensure that the accused will get the benefit of those. I thank you very much with my observations. I have no further things to add, and I keep it to this. I thank you for your attention, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Counsel. Now I turn to the prosecution.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further from the prosecution.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mustafa, I will now ask you if you have any issues or comments in relation that you would like to raise in relation to your arrest, transfer, or detention.
Jo nuk kam ndonjë çështje.
Well, there is nothing in particular I have to highlight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mustafa. Inform you that I have already issued some decisions with a view to organizing the pretrial proceedings efficiently. These include a decision ordering the specialist prosecutor and the registrar to reclassify their filings or prepare redacted versions, as the case may be, so that the defense has access to them as soon as possible. A decision requesting observations from the parties on the redaction regime to be adopted in this case, and a decision requesting observations from the parties on the working language to be used in the present case. I also inform you that I will schedule a status conference pursuant to Rule 96 to be held shortly after the present initial appearance. The purpose will be to review the status of the case and to organize exchanges between the parties to ensure expeditious preparation for trial. Mr. Mustafa, I wish to remind you that you have the right to attend this status conference with your counsel. However, with your written consent and after receiving advice from your counsel, pursuant to Rule 96.2, the status conference may be attended by you in person with your counsel participating via video conference link, by your counsel with you participating via video conference link, and it may also take place in your absence with your counsel present or participating via video conference link. I would now like to ask the parties on their views on a suitable date for the status conference to be held, if possible, at the end of this week or at the latest earlier next week. I'll turn to the prosecution first.
Your Honor, either date is fine with us. End of this week or beginning of next week is fine.
Thank you very much. Mr. Van Bonny.
I do not have my agenda, Your Honor. However, I believe that if it would be in the beginning of next week, it would be best to do that. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I intend to schedule the status conference very quickly, probably on Monday, and you will receive a scheduling order that will include the agenda in due course. After this status conference, I will issue a decision on the specialist prosecutor's disclosure obligations in accordance with Rule 102. I invite the parties to make submissions before this Friday on this topic and on any matter that they would like to raise during the first status conference. Mr. Mustafa, as you remain in detention, I would also like to inform you that you may challenge your detention on remand in accordance with Rule 57, and this will be dealt with in written rulings. This concludes today's hearing. I thank the parties and the registry for their attendance. I also wish to thank the interpreters, stenographers, audiovisual technicians, security personnel for their assistance. The hearing is adjourned. Thank you.
All rise.